Good afternoon and welcome back. You're watching the Midday Report and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. In the darkness and the cold of winter, with thousands of people left with no access to energy or heat, there is now a faint glimmer of hope. After the Trump-Zelenskyy meeting in Davos on Thursday, representatives of the US, Ukraine and Russia are set to meet in Abu Dhabi to discuss the terms of a potential peace, the first trilateral meeting of the kind to take place.
As thousands of Kyiv's residents faced another freezing day without heat and power, the city's mayor repeated his evacuation call, advising people to leave the capital if they can. Vitaly Klitschko said as of Friday morning, 1,900 apartment blocks remain disconnected from the hot water systems and electricity following Russian air attacks earlier this week. It's a similar situation in the central city of Dnipro, where authorities on Thursday said 7 people were injured in a strike. But now there's a glimmer of hope. Following a meeting with Donald Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos, President Zelenskyy said Ukraine, Russia and US negotiators will hold talks in Abu Dhabi on Friday. It's the first time that the 3 countries have sat down together since Moscow launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine nearly 4 years ago. On Friday morning, Zelenskyy told journalists he had spoken with Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, who's leading the Ukrainian delegation.
The issue of Donbas is key. It will be discussed, including the modalities of how the 3 sides sit, in Abu Dhabi today and tomorrow, with the head of the group. Umerov and I spoke in the morning and at night. He will continue working and will give me updates at every stage of these discussions or on any agreements reached.
After leaving Davos, President Trump told reporters he believed the deal was possible.
There are no changes. I think that President Putin would like to make a deal. I think that President Zelenskyy would like to make a deal.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, who late Thursday hosted US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, remains unwavering over demands that Kyiv's army should leave the entire territory of Donbass, land that Moscow has failed to capture. Experts say talks may founder over the land dispute.
Again, it's an existential question for Ukraine, and you cannot just, give away land, especially it's a very well fortified, and it's just like giving a loaded weapon that you put a lot of effort of crafting, of, putting ammunition inside, and basically what you're asked for is just give away this weapon to your enemy, because this is what it is, the claims for the eastern parts of Ukraine is very well fortified, and it will just it would make sense for Ukraine to give away those parts of land.
The Abu Dhabi talks are due to last 2 days, with questions over Ukraine's territorial integrity remaining central.
Spain joins the list of countries that have refused to join Donald Trump's new international organization, the Board of Peace. Following the events of days past, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez warned the U.S. has strained its relations with the EU like never before and threatened the previously existing world order. Our correspondent Kazimierz Łysiak, who is in Davos, Switzerland, and witnessed the inauguration of the Board of Peace last night, has more about Spain's decision and why other countries are hesitant to join the new organization.
Spain won't be joining the new international organization, Board of Peace, founded here at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Thursday. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez says that he doesn't like the fact that Palestine was not invited to join this Board of Peace, which is tasked with first solving the conflict in Gaza. The Spanish Prime Minister says that there is a need for a 2-state solution to this conflict and that Palestine should have been invited. But Pedro Sánchez also went on to criticize the very idea of this organization, saying that US President Donald Trump is threatening the world order.
The reality is that the United States government is not respecting international law and is straining the transatlantic relationship between the United States of America and the European Union like never before.
And that's not the end of controversy surrounding this organization, as on Friday, US President Donald Trump also revoked the invitation for Canada to join the Board of Peace. That comes after some very critical comments from Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney towards Trump. and his actions related to Greenland, the latest feud between Europe and the US over the autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. Prime Minister Carney said that there is a rupture of relations between the world and the United States, and Donald Trump responded during his speech here at the World Economic Forum.
Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
There are also other major countries which are not joining this organization. For example, France, which also is saying that this Board of Peace is overlapping in competencies with the United Nations. Other countries that are not going to join include Norway, Denmark, Slovenia, and there are plenty more which are hesitant on the issue. Poland is on the fence as well. Polish President Karol Nawrocki, a conservative ally of Donald Trump, says that he is interested, but he will need the agreement of the Polish Parliament. And, the Polish government is still on the fence whether to join or not. Many of these countries are on the fence precisely because of who Donald Trump is inviting. Like, for example, Russian President Vladimir Putin or Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko, both responsible for the war in Ukraine. So plenty of controversies surrounding the Board of Peace, and there could be still more changes coming to the list of countries joining and the list of countries that refuse to join. From Davos, Kazimierz Łysiak, TVP World.
And following on that, unlike Spain and a number of Western states, Poland has not rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's invitation to the Board of Peace outright. In line with Polish law, President Karol Nawrocki cannot single-handedly bring the country on board, but he has expressed interest in Poland's joining the body. Here's an in-depth look at the situation and the dynamics behind it.
Now we have this Board of Peace, who I believe's possibilities are endless.
Among them is the possibility of more countries joining, Poland not excluded.
Some even find this an alternative to the UN and thus a kind of international and geopolitical revolution. Still, we will take it very seriously and examine all the pros and cons.
It is President Karol Nawrocki's signature that would seal Poland's place on the Board of Peace.
This type of presidential signature, of course, requires prior approval by the Polish Parliament and an initiative from the Council of Ministers, so I simply expressed my great interest in participating in the Board of Peace.
Poland's parliament and government can either fast-track a pertinent bill or stall it strategically.
I think for the moment they will just simply try to gain as much time as possible to prolong this process and see what happens and see who joins this board and what the approach of the European Union will be.
But why the caution?
We are an ally of the United States, and we depend to a large extent. Our security depends on the United States. Also, when we shifted from purchasing oil and gas from Russia, we moved towards purchasing, in particular, gas from the United States. The whole European Union actually has done so. So now we are dependent also from that point of view on the United States.
For us, the United States are absolutely the most important partner when it comes to our security, etc. And we always accepted leadership of the United States. It's our mission, I think, today, and Europe should be here absolutely united to protect the relations.
By January 23, more than 19 countries have signed up to join the board, including Belarus, Egypt, Hungary, Israel, Kosovo, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Neither Russia nor China have said whether they would be joining or passing.
President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has criticized Europe for failing to act more forcefully on the global stage, demanding more courage from Ukraine's European allies. Zelenskyy made the remarks at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Thursday.
Instead of becoming a truly global power, Europe remains a beautiful but fragmented kaleidoscope of small and middle powers. Instead of taking the lead in defending freedom worldwide, especially when America's focus shifts elsewhere, Europe looks lost, trying to convince the US president to change. You can't build the new world order out of words. Only actions create real order. Today, America has launched the Board of Peace. Ukraine was invited, so was Russia, Belarus, though the war hasn't stopped. Things move faster than Europe. And how can Europe keep up? Dear friends, we should not degrade ourselves to secondary roles, not when we have a chance to be a great power together. And Europe can and must be a global force. Europe needs strength. For that, we must act together and act in time. And most of all, we must have the courage to act. And we are actively working to reach solutions, real solutions.
EU leaders have breathed a sigh of relief after U.S. President Donald Trump backed down from his long-standing ambition to annex Greenland. They noted, however, that transatlantic relations, though crucial, have taken a blow.
Things are getting back to normal, and I am pleased to see that while we started the week with a sort of escalation, invasion and tariff threats, we have managed to return to a situation which appears to me much more acceptable, even if we remain vigilant.
The transatlantic relations have definitely taken a big blow over the last week, but I think in this 1 year, we have learned that these relations are not the same as they were. On the European side, we are not willing to junk 80 years of good relations, and we are willing to work for this.
Coercion is not the way, and I am strongly against bold actions because I still treat the United States as our closest friend.
The European Commission wants the trade agreement with South American countries to come into force as soon as possible and does not want to wait for the European Parliament. This is according to statements made by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen after an extraordinary EU summit in Brussels. In line with the procedure, following approval by EU countries, ratification of the agreement by at least one Mercosur country is sufficient for the agreement to be provisionally applied. Zuzanna Jurek reports.
Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, seems determined to see the implementation of the Mercosur trade deal as soon as possible. This is the sentiment that reverberated during the extraordinary summit of EU leaders which took place in Brussels on Thursday night. Now this comes as the internal opposition within the EU continues to brew, with countries including France and Poland strongly against the implementation of any deal with the South American trading bloc, whilst others, including Germany, determined to see it come to fruition as soon as possible.
There is a clear interest that we ensure that the benefits of this important agreement apply as soon as possible. We have not taken a decision yet. What is the procedure? A decision would only be needed at a stage when one country of Mercosur or more countries of Mercosur have completed their procedures, are basically ready.
The EU laws and regulations allow the deal to enter into provisional force whilst the judicial and legal review gets underway by the European Court of Justice, as was requested by the European Parliament this past Wednesday. Now, over the last couple of months, the potential implementation of this deal has led to protests in the countries, mainly France and Poland, from farmers most opposed to the deal. At the same time, experts underline that the potential impacts of reaching this deal and finally implementing this deal are more than just about agriculture itself.
So last 4 years, it's roughly 300 billion euro of the lost increase of the European EU GDP, which again is 1.3% of GDP growth annual. That's what we lost in the last 4 years. Now it's also all this power gaming in the world. It's about position of Europe towards the United States, towards China, towards India, tomorrow towards Indonesia. So it's a pity that we have a risk of delaying.
The European Commission expects that the first South American countries will ratify the deal within the next 2 months. In the meantime, more internal infighting is expected across the EU. From Brussels for TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
3 fans of Club Brugge got more than they bargained for after appearing at the Astana Arena Stadium in Kazakhstan wearing the infamous Borat mankini. Their scant costumes were not appreciated by the local authorities, and the 3 Belgian nationals were sentenced to 5 days in jail for public drunkenness and minor hooliganism. Kazakhstan has long been trying to fix the reputational damage caused by the satirical 2006 film Borat, made famous by director and lead star comedian Sacha Baron Cohen. The film drew the ire of the Kazakhstan authorities, who banned it in the country. In 2024, stadium security confiscated a flag depicting Borat from a Chelsea supporter during a Conference League match against FC Astana. And so this would be all the latest news for now here at the Midday Report. Thank you for joining me. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more news and features in just a moment.